MQTT, or Message Queuing Telemetry Transport, is a protocol used by the Internet of Things to exchange messages and notify other devices of important changes. With MQTT, a publisher sends a message to a broker. The MQTT broker then sends messages to MQTT clients that have subscribed to an appropriate topic. This week, let's build an MQTT publisher with the Raspberry Pi and then publish a message about a connected switch. Hi, I'm Mark Neiman Ross, and welcome to this week's edition of Raspberry Pi Weekly. Every week, we explore the Raspberry Pi and share useful tips. To create a Raspberry Pi MQTT publisher, you'll need to update and install some software. Open a terminal window, and then start by updating your existing software. Use sudo apt-get update. When the update is finished, use sudo apt-get apt-get upgrade. When the upgrade is finished, you'll need to reboot your Raspberry Pi. When you've rebooted, you can install the Mosquito client software. Open up a terminal window and type in sudo apt install mosquitto-clients. This will also install software for an MQTT publisher. Now we're going to test MQTT on this system. So to do that, we need to open up a subscription to an MQTT broker. Type in a Mosquito subscription command, mosquitto _sub --host, and we're going to use mqtt.eclipse.org. Now this is a free sample MQTT server. The topic that we're going to publish to is LinkedIn Learning /RPI Weekly. And we're going to make it -v for verbose. Now, when I hit return, you will see that nothing happens. That's a good thing. I'm going to make this window a little bit smaller. And I'm going to put it over here in the corner so we can watch that. And I'm going to open up another terminal window. And I'm going to test this MQTT client. To do that, I'm going to publish an MQTT message. And I'll use mosquitto_pub. And the host that I'm going to talk to is mqtt.eclipse.org, which is the host that we've used as our subscription. The topic that I'm going to watch is LinkedIn Learning /RPI Weekly, and the message that I'm going to send out is MQTT Hello World! Return. I hit return, and you can see that on the right-hand side, that message has been published out through the MQTT server. Let's do that one more time. Again, and you'll see that message again shows up over on the MQTT server. So everything appears to be functioning correctly. Now let's set up some hardware to do the same thing. To demonstrate a hardware side of MQTT, you'll need a switch connected to the Raspberry Pi. Rebuild the simple switch and LED project as described in the handout for this session. Now we'll need to install some software to allow Python to talk to MQTT. First, you'll need to install the PAHO MQTT library. At a terminal window, type in pip3 install PAHO-MQTT. Then you can close that terminal window, go to the exercise files, to 0503 MQTT Publisher and open up the MQTT Publisher.py file using the Thonny Python IDE available with Raspbian. Now on the right-hand side, we're still monitoring the MQTT server. On the left-hand side, in the Thonny window, you can see that I have the MQTT Publisher Python program installed. When you run the Python program, it's going to watch the switch that you've installed and give us messages regarding that switch. You'll observe several things. When I push the button, Thonny gives us a console message to tell us the status of that button, pressed or not pressed. On the right-hand side, the message coming from the server is also indicating the status of that button. The server is learning about the status of the button from the MQTT publisher that we've created. Note that we've been using a test MQTT broker. For real applications, you'll want to use a commercial broker. You can find a list of brokers in the handout sheet in the example files. Now that you have a working MQTT publisher, next week I'm going to show you how to create an MQTT client using a Raspberry Pi. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Raspberry Pi Weekly. Be sure to join the LinkedIn group and check out previous episodes on LinkedIn Learning. I'll see you next week with more Raspberry Pi adventures.